Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Opposite the Monitor, and today we're going to get into some new information about Starfield. They kind of break down the housing system, player jail, and a bunch of other things in the Q&A, as well as we got some information about, some Call of Duty maps being added. Unfortunately, I have to talk about Call of Duty again, but yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. And yeah, man, we kind of got some more information about Starfield now. This is the information that I wish they would have included initially. Like initially, they talked about having like over 1,000 planets and how expansive it is, and this here and that and this, and it's just like you know. A lot of those things don't, for me personally, don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, they sound nice on paper, but it's nothing that sounds particularly interesting to me per se. But they go on to say that we now, for instance, know that Starfield will feature various possible punishments for those caught doing naughty things like smuggling contraband. That sounds, great to me. I love those small, paying attention to detail aspects of game development. Illegal goods are frowned upon across the galaxy, which is said to operate within a fixed income, although buy and sell prices can be influenced with certain skills. Um, and Additionally, they go on to say that must be smuggled past security ships orbiting major settlements by stuffing them inside special purchasable ship modules. So that all sounds great. To me, like I said before, and I think I may have mentioned this in a previous video, but a lot of these aspects that I see creeping up inside of Starfield seem to be, taken from Elite Dangerous. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. Like Elite Dangerous would be a good model to, or a good example to model your game after, because there's a lot of different aspects, a lot of different things that come into play when playing Elite Dangerous. And this is just also good information to kind of see, and delve into. So I'm excited for it, man. I think the last time they implemented a jailing system that I can remember, that wasn't like modded after the fact, was Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Skyrim had a jailing system in there as well, like and a whole entire like you know um, a consequence system essentially. And I thought that was actually interesting. Thought it was funny. Because I mean, if you do different, if you do different things that go outside of the element of what that particular town or city has, it's nice to kind of like have a, policing system and a different, a consequence system. And then once you're in jail, it kind of like robs you of, certain perks and things like that, or certain skills, and you kind of got to regain them back as well. And I think if I'm not mistaken too, like at that point in time, like Skyrim was so advanced, the game itself was still perpetual, even though you were in prison. So you would miss like certain dynamic events that would happen if you were jailed. And it was kind of like something that was kind of far and few in between. You had to really do some like egregious stuff in that town to be able to get arrested, essentially. But man, it's dope to kind of like hear that coming in. The whole smuggling, contraband, illegal goods, things like that. Now with it may speak about fixed income, fixed economy. I'm assuming that well, they actually go on to say that although buy and sell prices can be influenced with certain skills. So it's I guess like it's not necessarily fixed because it can be flexible and it lives within a spectrum. So it's like if you have specific skills and perks, you can kind of influence pricing by bartering, or not bartering, having increased barter skills, I guess, or being able to, kind of have a specific influence or things like that, that you may want to cater your character to. So, I mean, that's also really good. Traditional Bethesda, RPG elements that they typically do. But they go on to kind of say, which I thought this was some more great information as well. Between all the sci-fi bombast, you will be able to purchase houses in all major cities. Other homesteads become available as quest rewards, and still on domestic matters. Bethesda knows that players' in-game appearance will be generated based on features chosen from the protagonist during character creation, which incidentally also includes an option for an anonymous backstory should you wish to play with no traits. And I think this was something they kind of implemented in Fallout 4. Fallout 4 had the whole like when you created your character, initially when the game started, I think you could kind of pick like your pedigree essentially, and that kind of determines your parents, which then ultimately, I think you could choose from a backstory. I don't remember it being randomly generated, but I thought you could choose from a backstory in Fallout 4. Um, and so, it's great to kind of see that they're bringing that back into Starfield as well. But I guess the most interesting thing is that being able to purchase homes. This was something that wasn't necessarily announced or kind of, I don't even think, teased at really at the initial announcement of Starfield. So this is also a good thing. It just kind of plays more into that economy that, Bethesda has created for Starfield. And like I said, I go back to saying like this is the information that I wanted to hear. The little nuances that are being implemented into the game. And so yeah, like I was kind of hesitant with Starfield at first, you know what I'm saying? The whole like I feel like they were going into that same traditional AAA route of being like bigger is better, and we have 1,000 planets and it's 16 times the graphics and all this other, outrageous stuff that the gimmicks and everything that they like to play into in marketing as far as the gaming sphere goes. But yeah, like this is the kind of information that I wanted to hear. This is the kind of information that I was interested in. Um, but yeah, so like the parent creation during the character creation process, as well as possibly a randomly generated backstory, or it says anonymous backstory if you play with no traits. So I mean, but yeah, that's great. And I'm pretty sure like there'll probably be a set number of houses you can own, possibly, or maybe not. Maybe there won't be a set number of homes you could own. You probably because it does say other homesteads become available as quest rewards, so they become available as quest rewards. But pretty sure they'll function more so just like hubs for different sections of the galaxy or the universe per se. So then that way, you don't necessarily have to keep going back. You don't have to fast travel back and forth to multiple different, or you don't have to fast travel back and forth to a specific place to do like a save and a thing. I'm pretty sure they may actually add like a save on the go type of element. But one thing I do hope that they do include in there, which I'm pretty sure they may do this as well, because I mean, what's the whole purpose in having a home if you can't customize it? So having like a custom home built specifically, to your, interests and things like that would also be great. Pretty sure, they'll allow modding and stuff like that, so you can probably add your own actual like custom, images and things like that, and possibly have your home set up, uh, very unique to you. But they go on to also say that Bethesda says to expect 20 in total, four from Constellation, while others are connected to main quest, all with their own backgrounds, who will merely follow you around and carry your stuff. Alongside companions, players can hire generic crew members to work on ships and outposts. So 20 companions in total, and four from Constellation, and then the rest of them be from main quest. So Constellation is one of the major cities that's within Starfield, and that's kind of like a given. You already know that. If you're getting a Bethesda game, you're going to get companions in the game, regardless. That's just part of their like moniker when they develop their RPGs. But the one of the newer things that I do like is the generic crew members that will be outside of the you know outside of the normal companions, which leads me to believe that like they already kind of showed you walking around on the ship and stuff like that, but I didn't see them show like walking around the ship as it was in flight. I've only seen them show the ship as it is landed on a planet. So I'm hoping that you can still have the opportunity, I guess, to put the ship in autopilot and then allow you to be able to walk around the ship, interact with your companion, or interact with your companions as well as your crew members, or if they just exist as a resource to be used to control different aspects of your ship, as far as like shields, additional armory, the hull of the ship, protection of the hull and stuff like that. That's kind of how Elite Dangerous operated. Like, you didn't specifically see the crew members. and interact with the crew members, but you were able to use them as a necessary resource to be able to, make things a lot more accessible and streamlined when it came to different aspects of your ship that you were piloting. So then that way you could essentially be the sole pilot, while you have other engineers like being able to increase your shield regeneration rate faster. Like they all came with specific perks that increase your capabilities of fighting in space. Maybe they had like a faster reload time or for the armaments on your ship, or maybe a faster recharge time, and stuff like that for your pulse cannons. So I mean, like I think that's kind of the take that may be going into Starfield with this, is that you won't necessarily be able to like actually interact with them, walk around the ship and talk to them and stuff like that. But I think it may be more of like a resource and like a perk system essentially. And I think each crew member may actually have a specific perk that's associated with them to be able to give you an edge in space battle and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of interesting as well. And then the last bit of information that's very unique, and I didn't think that they would actually kind of identified this so early. Well, that's not necessarily early on. Starfield releases next month, but I didn't think they would like release this information. I know sometimes Bethesda doesn't release certain information because the whole allure of the open world RPG style games for you to be able to play the game and then actually go in and find all of the different things, and then reports come out afterwards about, hey, we found this in the game, we found this aspect of the game, this part of the game, and stuff like that, and here's where you can find it, here's what you can do with it. So I'm pretty sure they still have some of those same nuggets, some of those same collectibles and stuff, but this was very niche and nuanced, and something that I didn't think they would be implementing, but they kind of implement religions into the game as well. And they go on to say that additionally there are three main religions in game, with House Varun, I guess. I guess that's how you pronounce it. I butchered that name, but being a primarily antagonist religion, and then all faction quests can be completed independently. You can then become an undercover agent within the United Colony System Defense Military and more. So it gets very in depth. It gets very detailed. They kind of also go on to say that you can be a complete pacifist in the game, use non-lethal weapons the entire game, but it's just increased difficulty. But as far as the religion, the different factions, there's confirmation there for that. And I mean, like, hey, just being able to go down a rabbit hole of a story quest and being an undercover agent sounds interesting. It really truly does sound interesting. It does sound exciting to be able to kind of engage in that. And so, man, like, I think that that is actually a really, really, really good point. I'm actually more excited for that aspect than any other aspect that I've listed previously in this article. But yeah, I'm excited for this, man. They're slowly, changing my tune with this. And initially I never disliked the game. It's more so a fact of you're focusing. For me, it was the marketing was focusing too much on things that weren't important enough to be focused on. As far as like the thousand planets and the open universe and the mining and all that stuff like that, like it's kind of like a given, what I'm saying. I wanted to know more details about the little nuances that were implemented in the game. As far as like combat and stuff like that, like, yes, that's great, that's fun watching gun combat and different ways to sneak around, pickpocket and things like that. I do think they need to work on um the execution of the stealth combat. For me personally, it just seems like when you sneak up behind someone, you can just hit them in the back and then they just topple over and die. I think they need to be able to kind of like throw some animation in between, like in that kind of sneaking element. But I mean, who knows? It may be implemented and just during that gameplay showcase and it wasn't there. But if it hasn't been implemented yet, it won't be implemented. It could probably be a tweak or something, but it'll be difficult to kind of try to like add that into the pipeline, given all the details that have been already confirmed, at least. But yeah, we're gonna move on though to the next topic, and the next thing we have is that Alan Wake 2 delayed for 10 days to avoid release date with clashes. Now, I reported in my past video that one of the developers, or he may have been the head of Remedy, specifically was like specifically made a comment about Red Dead Redemption Remaster not releasing during October because they don't want to compete with that. But I mean, given the fact that Red Dead Redemption, the port that was announced was a terrible, shitty release, and they Rockstar didn't put any effort into it, I think they could have survived that that kind of release. But I mean, like they're just pushing it back 10 days, still within Broketober. But specifically they go on to say that an update from Alan Wake 2's team, we're moving Alan Wake 2's launch to October 17th, from October 17th to October 27th. October is an amazing month for game launches, and we hope this date shift gives more space to everyone to enjoy their favorite games. I kind of take that as like marketing speak for a little bit maybe like genuine concern for people to like create, play all their favorite games, stuff like that. But I think you know, the main reason is that they were really like stuff in between a bunch of other different games that people like. And go scroll down a little bit further. We'll kind of go over the different games that they initially were going up against versus the games they're going up against now. And the games they were initially going up against was Detective Pikachu Returns, which is October 6th. Forza Motorsport, October 10th. That's a big one. Forza Motorsport is going to be a big game. And then Assassin's Creed Mirage, also a big game. Lords of the Fallen, also a big game. And they were going up. The main ones they were definitely going to go up against was as far as like within the same space, because Detective Pikachu is on the Nintendo Switch, and that's going to be they have their own ecosystem as far as I'm concerned. Like I can't necessarily compare a Nintendo to like Xbox and PlayStation or PC because they exist within their own ecosystem. And typically people who have a Switch, they typically have more than just that console. So I mean, like I don't necessarily think that would have been a great competitor to Alan Wake 2, but the rest of them, yes. But I don't think that, man. I don't think that the push back would have did them any more justice than what it was. I actually think the initial launch date was the better of the two, but right below it, the updated release date, they have to go up against Spider-Man 2. It comes out right after Spider-Man 2. That is something you don't want to go up against. That's definitely going to impact some sales, because Spider-Man 2 is going to be the event of October. That is going to be an event. People will buy PlayStations for that. People are currently buying the controller and the Spider-Man PlayStation, for that game. You know what I'm saying? So Spider-Man 2 is definitely going to be an event. Me personally, I wouldn't have gone up against it, but I mean, maybe they have their reasonings that I don't know. But also they're going to go up against they have Super Mario Brothers Wonder, which I said exists in their own ecosystem. Me personally, I don't think that's going to negatively impact their sales, because Alan Wake 2 was never coming to Switch anyways. But City Skylines 2, Metal Gear Solid Master Collection, and Alone in the Dark. I kind of find this funny because, well, not necessarily funny, but more ironic, because back in the day, Alan Wake actually, like Alone in the Dark and Alan Wake were competitors back in the day. And the fact that they're going to be releasing in the same month again, is actually pretty funny. Because I remember Alone in the Dark, the original one, and the original Alan Wake, and both of those were competitors to each other back in the day. And now, to granted, Alan Wake was the initial mainline, game, and then for me personally, I felt like Alone in the Dark was the knockoff, or like the spin-off of Alan Wake 2, or Alan Wake in general. So, because it kind of felt the same, it kind of had the same kind of like allure, but it leaned more into horror than Alan Wake did. But yeah, for me personally, I thought that was pretty ironic that they're gonna be going up a competitor that they went up with the initial launch of Alan Wake, the first one. So, like I said, man, me personally, I think that I probably would have chose to go up against Assassin's Creed Mirage and Forza Motorsport and Lords of the Fallen over Spider-Man 2. Me personally. But then again, I don't know. Maybe they may have a chance because there's three games that have a big following versus one game that has a large following. So I guess I don't know. Maybe they have their own reasons. If you would ask me personally, I wouldn't have made that decision. I would have just gone. I would try to avoid Spider-Man 2 at all costs. Me personally, but all right, moving on though. We have another topic moving on, and just want to bring this up, man. Immortals of Aveum offers 60 FPS on PS5 and Xbox Series X and S using FSR2, and yeah, man, we got another one. Before it was Lords of the Fallen, so now we got two, some Unreal Engine 5 games. Giving some love to the console players for 60 FPS. And I got another post to talk about the frame rate in a little bit that I think is interesting as well, but kind of go on to say, and just to give a little bit of detail on this, they go on to say that on the consoles, the game will be upscaled to maximum display resolution of each user, leading to a sharper image. However, Ascent Studios has not elaborated on the internal resolution yet, so no native resolution, but these are upscale reses. And the main reason why developers kind of go into an upscale platform essentially is because it allows for flexibility on multiple different platforms versus like having native 60 FPS or having a native particular resolution. And the main reason for that is because you got consoles that release, for example, with Xbox, there's two different consoles that release with two different specs, and then you have to account for PC as well because PC also has multiple different uh, graphical processing units that have all kinds of different specs and different hardware associated with it, including aftermarket GPUs as well. So you want to kind of streamline the accessibility for different pieces of hardware. This will allow you to be able to just make the game more accessible to more platforms without hindering the performance of each platform. So, I mean, this is pretty good, man. I'm excited for Immortals of Aveum. I was me personally, I was kind of waiting to see because I I was trying to choose between Immortals of Aveum and Remnant from the Ashes 2 or Remnant 2. And I'm like, man, I want to buy Remnant 2, but I think I'm gonna wait on Remnant 2 because I want to sink some time into Immortals of Aveum more. And I think Immortals of Aveum is something that I'm more excited for at this moment. And I've been really getting into a lot of single player games lately too, man. So a lot of single player games have been really great. So I mean, I'm excited for this. I do like the whole first person like magical aspect of it, and stuff like that. I saw some gameplay from some other YouTubers who were able to be invited to the event out in California that they had, and kind of show some behind the scenes gameplay and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm a little bit more excited for this. Yeah, man, I just want to be able to kind of jump into this, but it's great to kind of hear the flexibility upscaling, especially since initially they recommended having a 3080 Ti at the high end. But well, I mean, they kind of upgraded that to which I can kind of show the more specs blown up, maybe a little difficult to see because it's all pixelated. But the average performance, if you're doing low to medium settings, 1080p 60 FPS or 40 FPS, 1440p or 60 FPS, you'll definitely want to get you a AMD 57 XT for the 1080p, AMD 6800 XT for the 1440p, and then a 2080. They recommend a 2080 Super for the 1080p 60 FPS. I don't necessarily think you need that. I've played games before that say like, oh, you need 8 gigabits of VRAM or 12 gigabits of VRAM to play on you know, uh, medium settings or high settings or whatever like that. But I've played other intensive games on my PC. I have a RTX 2080. I don't even have a Super. I just have a RTX 2080 that has 8 gigabits of VRAM, 8 gigabytes of VRAM, and I'm able to play 1440p at like 120 frames per second. Granted, I do have a i9 9900K. So that kind of like with it, so it has an integrated graphics within the CPU, so it kind of offsets a little bit to kind of take some hindrance off of my GPU. And essentially, man, like I feel like these are just the and some of these are requirements, but some of them are just like recommendations. That's how I kind of see it. But yeah, just kind of put these up here, man, for you guys to see, man. If you guys are interested in the Immortals of Aveum, definitely check this out, man. And I'm personally buying mine on PC because I want to be able to play it on my ROG Ally, so that way I can kind of. I'm pretty sure this game's gonna have cross play and cross save, so I can be able to play on my Ally as well as my actual PC. So I'm excited for this, man. I'm definitely can't wait. Definitely can't wait for sure. But yeah, moving on. We have some more information. Vast majority of PS5 players choose performance mode over quality. And yeah, man. I am one of those gamers. I'm one of those gamers where it's like I do not care necessarily about resolution because I care about resolution to a certain extent, but I'm okay with playing on 1080p. Especially if I'm using DLSS. But for me, FPS is more so the primary factor in my game and my me purchasing a game because 60 FPS looks dramatically better than 30 FPS and 120 FPS looks dramatically better than 60 FPS. Um, and kind of go on to well, originally this question was prompted inside of the PS5 subreddit, but they kind of go on to say that the question initially prompted was, do you use performance mode or quality mode more? Personally, I always use performance mode. I always notice 60 FPS way more than I notice ray tracing. And yeah, that's for sure a fact. Like for me personally, 60 FPS is definitely more noticeable than ray tracing. Ray tracing is for in my opinion, ray tracing is for the camp that can be able to sus- sustain 4K 60 FPS, and I mean be able to sustain a solid 60 FPS. If you can be able to sustain a solid 60 FPS on your rig, and still have enough headroom for ray tracing, that's when ray tracing shines. Ray tracing doesn't shine at me personally, from what I've seen, doesn't shine so much at lower resolutions, which is why having a higher end GPU tends to be better if you normally game in 4K. There's no need to buy a $2,000 graphics processing unit if you plan on gaming at 1080p or 1440 because you're not going to get the full potential of the card as well as you're going to get some adverse performance issues as well because those cards don't function at the lower end of the spectrum because they're built specifically to be at the higher end. Um, and so, yeah, like 60 FPS is definitely more noticeable over ray tracing because ray tracing is those little touches to light to emphasize objects and the environment within the game. And so for me personally, when I'm playing on my console, quality mode is essentially trying to implement ray tracing, but it does it at the detriment to the frames per second. And 30 frames per second with ray tracing to me looks worse than 60 frames per second with no ray tracing. And it's just because you get the smoothness. There's no jankety, animation styles, and the controls aren't jerky and all this other stuff. And there's no like, sometimes it looks blocky as well. Like I know with some games, like for instance, when I play uh, God of War Ragnarok on quality mode, it looks worse than God of War on performance mode. So yeah, but they kind of give some like comments and quotes about it as well. So they go on to say that performance graphics are so good now that games look great even in performance mode, said one Reddit user. And then another one says 60 FPS anytime. They also go on to say that FPS all day. Responded a different user. And then one guy went in to say that I do care about graphics, but not enough to ignore the jerkiness that is 30 FPS, which is what I basically said too. Once you've gone 60 FPS, there's no going back. Always performance, smoother gameplay is more important to me than graphics. So it seems to be a general consensus around the fact that, you know, uh, the frames per second for the performance mode in general out trumps the quality mode. And people care more about frames per second than ray tracing. So I mean, to me, I think the definitive answer is just basically performance mode should be the default when you're playing a game on consoles. When you're playing a game on consoles, performance mode should be the default. But within this article, though, they kind of go on the the author kind of goes on to kind of explain his expectations for the future of console games, and he's specifically recommend or specifically pointing out the PlayStation 5 Pro. And I heard some rumblings, I guess, about the PS5 Pro potentially having like an 8K resolution support, and stuff like that, because Sony's been pushing 8K for like a decade now at this point. And that's kind of something that is so far into the future because we don't even have entertainment. The entertainment medium in general itself does not even offer content at 8K resolution. There's only a few bits of content that you can get at 8K. Most people don't even have 8K TVs. That's kind of like a privilege type of thing to have at this point. But he kind of goes on to say that console gamers can live. Well, he hopefully wants console gamers to live in a world where having both 60 FPS and 120 FPS, as well as ray tracing, implemented as a viable option with no compromise. Is something that I personally don't think will happen in this generation. Um, Once you start getting to that point, consoles inevitably end up becoming PCs. And you know, I mean, at that point, you might as well just buy a PC. The one thing that can definitely keep PlayStations alive, and people don't like to hear this, but is exclusives. There's a big subset of people that just want to get rid of exclusives and have games go across the board on everything. But I feel like if you are the person like and the only way to keep consoles around is exclusives because you have to have a reason to buy that console. If consoles continue to evolve closer into PCs, there's no need for a console anymore. You might as well just buy a PC. It has more capabilities. It has more options for you to do outside of just gaming, but you can do a whole bunch of other stuff with it. So it's like, you need a draw. You need something to still be able to want to build some type of interest and incentivize people to be able to buy a console. And I think that's where exclusives come in play is that there's games that are only exclusive, that are only built for that console. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, yeah, I think being able to have 60 FPS, a steady 60 FPS and 120 FPS, and just completely eliminating 30 FPS on consoles, that is something that won't be around for this generation at all. I think it'll have to be the next generation or the generation after. But yeah, this is just some information, man, that I wanted to point out with this, for sure. You know what I'm saying? But we're gonna move forward. But another piece of information that I have for you guys is Overwatch 2 is Steam's worst user review game of all time, but for a surprising reason. It's definitely surprising. I thought that this was the worst user review game on Steam because of the entire, like I spoke about this before, but the entire cancellation of the PvE hero mode, the microtransactions, the store, like it's just like everything else. You would think that everything else that was reported about this game would make people review this game terribly, but it's not. And the main reasoning behind this, which I've already read this and I kind of divulged it down, but the main reason behind this is that Chinese players are review bombing the game on Steam. Chinese players review bombing the game on Steam. On Steam. So they go on to say that Chinese players have been unable to play Overwatch 2 for nearly 8 months following the end of Blizzard and NetEase's 14-year distribution agreement back in 2023. This, I remember I remember this happening, and this could be probably that decision probably was influenced by Microsoft. Because when I sit back and I think about it, it's more so just like, okay, Microsoft does get government contracts from the U.S. government. The U.S. government is currently trying to shut down access to TikTok, which is which is owned by its headquarters in America. I think its headquarters in Texas, but it is owned by Tencent, which is a Chinese operated, global megacorp in China. And suspicions about data breaches and leakage and stuff like that being sent over to China. And so I think with the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, that had to come at the expense of NetEase, which then trickled down into Chinese citizens being able to play Blizzard or being able to play Overwatch 2. I'm sorry. So I think that's just my personal take on it. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just my personal take on it. That's the only way I can see that kind of makes sense as to why that whole entire, you know, deal divulged or like dissipated essentially. And I think, they never really gave like I don't think they gave like an actual answer as to what really happened. Well, Blizzard basically, accused NetEase of not coming to a proper agreement, and NetEase came back and said Blizzard wasn't agreeing with us. So it was just a bunch of like back and forth, and we never really got like a concrete answer as to what actually went down. But if I had to guess, I think that is actually what prompted that particular deal to dissipate and come to an end. But they kind of go on to say that since Chinese Overwatch 2 players are having to go through Steam to play and don't have access to their original Overwatch 2 accounts following Blizzard and NetEase's breakup, players are frustrated about having to start over from scratch and the game's lack of proper Chinese servers. Hey man, I mean that right there just comes down to the big business. That's it. It's unfortunate that you have to kind of start over and play with limited servers and stuff like that. But in all for me personally is like there's other games that you could sink more time into. To be completely honest with you, like you know the NetEase president of Global Investments kind of like also said that the biggest victim were Chinese players who live and breathe in those worlds. I don't think anyone should live and breathe in a world of a video game, essentially. But I mean, there are people out there that do that, but this is just a product of big business. You have to be able to, sometimes you got to accept certain things. But and even then, though, too, man, from what I know, I think China's also limiting gameplay access as well, too. So it's like, it's probably why people are also frustrated too, because it's like the people that actually want to play video games can only play video games for a certain amount of time, and then given the fact that Overwatch 2 may be your favorite video game, you only have a certain amount of time to play video games in general, and then there's limited servers. So then if there's limited servers and everyone's trying to get into those Chinese servers for Overwatch 2 and you can't get in, you're just wasting your time, your very small window of valuable gaming time. So I can see how, I can see how on one end it's very much so frustrating to be able to not play your favorite game in China right now, but I can also see on the other end that, hey man, you just got to accept, you got to have play a different game. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just a product of big business. It's product business being done. But yeah, man, this is actually the funny thing because I never thought like it would be. This is the reason why it got review bombed. I was like, man, like I guess nobody cares about the, I mean, people cared about the PVE hero mode being canceled, but all the other shit, I don't think nobody cared about. I don't think it was like, yeah, well, we don't care. It's par for the course for Activision Blizzard these days. But yeah, man, that's kind of funny, I thought. But moving on, though, we have the last little bit of information today that I want to get in, and I don't want to talk about Call of Duty anymore, but I have to because some of y'all like Call of Duty. So, Modern Warfare 3 brings back all the 2009 Modern Warfare 2's maps, it seems. And this coming from Charlie Intel, which is a very reputable news source to be able to get a lot of the Call of Duty information. They break all of the Call of Duty information. Updates and everything like that. So this follows a leak from earlier in the week that said Modern Warfare 3 would include the 16 maps at launch. The maps included are High Rise, Sub Base, Estate, Terminal, Wasteland, Afghan, Rust, Underpass, Invasion, Karachi, Quarry, Skid Row, Scrapyard, Favela, and Derail. And yeah, man, this is great for people who um enjoy Modern Warfare. I'm at this point, I'm just tired of Call of Duty, and I'm just tired of I feel like Modern Warfare is just being rushed out, not rushed out the gate, but just like here's Modern Warfare, here's Modern Warfare, here's Modern Warfare. I loved it back when it was more so just like here's Modern Warfare, here's Black Ops, here's but hey, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, if people are, people love Modern Warfare, man, and stuff like that. And I think also, too, this is just them being able to perpetuate the Battle Royale, like the free to play aspects of things and the constant monetization of stuff. So You know, especially since they synced a lot of time into that DMZ, into that Modern Warfare, and I don't think people are playing DMZ anymore like that either. So, especially that's why they're trying to do all these gimmicks and throwing in Snoop Dogg and Nicki Minaj and all this other shit into the game that has nothing to do with actual military combat. But yeah, man, I figured this would be some good information for some of you Call of Duty guys out there that like Call of Duty and stuff like that, man. I feel like Call of Duty is just going down the drain. I feel like we need an alternative, man, and that's why I've been looking at X Defiant and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully DICE can turn it around with Battlefield. I have no hope for that. They keep talking about they're going to reimagine the game, even though they've done it already. You did it already with 2042, but I'm just hoping that we can get another shooter in the space. I keep saying, man, Sony is trying to hold on to Call of Duty. It will come to an end inevitably. I do not think Microsoft is going to continue to, not after the stunt they pulled during the investigation of the SEC, the FTC, but I think that it's going to be inevitable that Call of Duty is going to be exclusive on Xbox. It's just a matter of when. And during this time, you need to be prepping another shooter that you own, so then that way you can put it out into the world. So then that way you can have Call of Duty as well as another game. So then if they ever pull Call of Duty from under the rug from you, you have another built-in fan base that has, for example, Killzone. Killzone has always been a great competitor to Call of Duty. You back in the day, it was Killzone, Call of Duty, and Battlefield. They were all great competitors to one another because they all had different play styles and different aspects of one another that had their own built-in fan base. And if you were to ask me, I think Killzone had the better campaign out of both. I think Killzone had way better campaigns than Call of Duty as well as Battlefield. So me personally, that's a viable alternative to do. And in that way, it's like you have Call of Duty for the next 10 years. During this course of time, you could be developing a Killzone game for 5 to 6 years of that 10-year span, and then have people engaged in Killzone for an additional 2 to 3 years and stuff like that, and have it be an event like Call of Duty. You know what I'm saying? But that's just my personal take on it. But let me know what you guys think in the comments, man. Let me know what you thought about the topics today. What do you think about Starfield and all the additional information we got from them? What do you think about Alan Wake 2 being delayed 10 days? Were you surprised that Overwatch 2 negative Steam reviews were about Chinese players being frustrated instead of all the other important shit that they do on a daily basis over there at Blizzard, at Activision Blizzard? Let me know in the comments, man. Let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the video today, make sure you like the video. If you guys enjoy the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And also, if you don't want to miss a video, since you enjoy the video, make sure you hit the bell so you never miss a video. And we will talk to you guys next week, man. Thank you.